I have chosen a poem called We and They by Rudyard Kipling, which was written in 1926 and is comprised of 5 stanzas. Poet speaker, the form and rhymes. I will talk about the language and the themes, and I will mainly focus on the themes, the poet speaker, and the message of the poem. The poem details the differences between two groups, we and they, from the perspective of a child. The poem is mainly about cross-cultural encounters. When people from two different cultures meet, they are most sensitive to the differences between them. The poet speaker seems to be a child speaking about we and they. The poet speaker thinks that all good, nice people like him are we and everybody else is they. He cannot believe why they would look upon him as a they. It is difficult for him to understand that they don't think that he is better than them, even when it's clearly obvious to him. He sees himself as superior and others in the different group as inferior. For an example, he says in the 4th stanza, we have doctors to fee, they have wizards to pay. And this shows us how the poet thinks of they as inferior and different from himself. The fact that it is a child speaking is quite funny because a lot of grown-ups say similar things about people who is different from themselves. And here is the president of the US, a great example because Trump often marks out the differences between Americans and Mexicans in his tweets and is using the terms we and they. And I quote, we have people coming into the country or trying to come in. We are stopping a lot of them, but we are taking people out of the country. You wouldn't believe how bad these people are. These aren't people, these are animals, Trump said. So the poem is highly relevant in today's society, and the expectations about we and they is still living on and verbalized. The poem is built up by 5 stanzas. The poem is structured with end rhymes, which means rhyming of the final words of lines in the poem, such as we, me, they, way, spears, ears. And this creates a harmony and balance in the poem. And the end rhymes also give an effect of a better understanding of the text because you will attach more importance to the sentences in the poem. The poem is broken up into stanzas of equal size, which creates a stable pattern in the poem, and it becomes very clear and manageable. Kipling uses simple words for profound ideas and includes himself in the all-universal prejudice against anyone different. Us and them is built into our DNA as a virtually incurable condition. We've all got it. Kipling projects that certainty, saying we repeatedly until we reluctantly realize that we includes us. He is using these personal pronouns such as we and they, which establishes some contrasts in the poem and a sort of generalization. The language in the poem is also characterized by the use of humor. In the end of almost all of the stanzas, Kipling writes, and I quote from the 3rd stanza, and after all that they look upon we as an utterly ignorant they. And so it's kind of funny how the poet is trying to convince the reader about the hilarious situation with the they thinking of the we as an utterly ignorant they, because both parts probably think the same of each other. So the poem We and They dramatize how we are just as foreign to other people as they are to us. If we find what others do shocking, they are equally likely to be shocked at our own strange customs. There is no absolute definition of what is normal. It's all what you are accustomed to. We have to keep in mind that everyone is normal in their own eyes, or we will not be able to understand them and interact with them. They don't think we are normal either. If you look at the last stanza, the poet is trying to say that where you come from determines the way you look at others and yourself. He says that if you go to live where they live, you may come to think of your culture as just another culture and not as the correct and only culture. Kipling's poem foreshadows identity, postmodern and post-colonial studies illustrating perfectly the binary logic underlying Western rationality. The poem also deals with the issue of superiority. The way people see each other is connected to where they were born. Hume in The Crowd wrote that differences is an accident of birth, and this is exactly what Kipling was trying to say. We should never hate others because they are different. We will always see others as different. However, this is not a negative thing. It is possible to respect those differences, and that is the way we should live and relate to others. So, We and They is a controversial poem which identifies the div- division between cultures. For example, the two different lifestyles led by these two families is highlighted. The impression of an Indian tribal and a British slash American family comes to mind. The poet talks about how they are looked upon by the other tribe, but eventually we discover that the poet is equally as judgmental about the other tribe as they are him. Many differences are drawn out. These include diet, medical, and religion. The ancient other family are more spiritual than the poet, and this also shows that they probably have more faith and don't take advantage of things. In the poem We and They, Rudyard Kipling writes about how people judge those outside their community as other. There are differences between different groups, but these differences don't have to be a source of conflict. We should try to understand each other and respect these differences, and to understand that if we were to move to a different place or learn other people's costumes, um, we may end up looking at our own costumes as strange. And that is some of the things the poem is trying to say.